What's the warrant for that? You said that Trump should go to jail because he's a crook, but what is the warrant for his criminality? What is the evidence that you have? You're like, a lot. Like, almost. Right. right. All day, every day. But, so the question would be, right, so your question, right, when you're thinking of questions, and this is very strategic for winning arguments, you have to understand what they're attempting to prove. So if you ever ask questions about the claim, it is for the purpose of clarity. Before you can punch someone in the throat, their throat has to be exposed to you. Like, you need to know where it is. They can't just be jumping around, right? Like, getting clarity of the question means you're setting them up to be able to attack them. You need to know what you're going to attack. You need to know what you're going to attack. You need to know what you're going to attack. So the claim is for clarity. The warrant, if you're asking questions about the warrant, you're like, well, what's the evidence for that? Doesn't this evidence over here contradict that? Like, you're attacking, you're questioning, you're interrogating the warrant. Or you could be interrogating the impact of the argument. The impact of the argument is why the argument matters. Because the claim can be true, the warrant of an argument can be true, but do you win? You automatically win if the warrant is true. No, because you can still attack an argument based on what? The impact, right? I'm sorry, yes? I'm sorry, is that what you said? Oh. All right, so you can still attack an argument based on the impact. So an argument has got to, it's like Pokemon, got to have them all. Now, I'm going to digress a little bit here, and what you're going to learn here is going to help you every class that you ever have for the rest of your life. Whether or not you're writing a 5-paragraph essay, a 5-page essay, this is really why they're making this into a course, right? There are a couple of things that we learn in debate that just like, oh, wow, every kid should know this. Part of the issue with debate is they're like, we spend a lot of money on debate. A lot of money gets spent on really a few kids who are traveling and a lot of teams. How does this translate to the wider community? Why is having great debate teams so important? Well, that's because debate ends up having like mini teachers all over, right? It ends up creating a sense of understanding and intellectualism that will help everyone on these papers. The structure of all academic writing, that means in your English class, in your history class, right? If you are popularizing the type of intellectualism that is responsible for argument, you are actually undergirding your entire district with the key to doing well in all academic pursuits. So whether or not you're doing a 5-paragraph essay, a 5-page paper, a master's thesis, the logical structure of academic writing ultimately looks like this. You're making a thesis level argument. If you look in the dictionary for the word thesis, what does the word thesis mean? A thesis is a big argument. A thesis just means, if you look at the word thesis, it's like argument. The difference between just a regular argument and a thesis is in a thesis, you prove it true with a series of smaller arguments. So you have one big argument that you prove true with a series of smaller arguments underneath it. Now, if you look back to how every teacher has told you to write an essay, it's going to sound something like this. The only difference is that they never ever told you that all you were being asked to do was make an argument. Whenever you're being asked to write an essay, to make a presentation, English, history, I can make arguments about math too. I had a great math teacher. I was like, I'm struggling in calculus. I could not understand calculus. And she said, look, you're a debater. You should do well in that. And I'm like, no, I'm really good with language. I can do wonders with language. Anything with language, I'm great at. I can do history. I can do English. I can even do science. Because in science, you have to understand it through the use of language, right? Like I can make arguments all day, every day. I can do that. Yeah. I can do that all day, every day. I get dehydrated. All right. So, but she was like, and so the calculus teacher, what she said next kind of changed my thinking about math forever. She said, but math is a language. It's just numbers and principles. Those principles are just the grammar, right? When you say this equals this, that's a thing. That's a language. It's communicating. I was like, ooh, wow. And you're just when you're looking at what's in each of these sides, that's the equivalent of grammar, right? Those are just rules or structure of language. They're rules or structure of math. Math is a language, and it's actually true. Like I didn't know that bees speak math. Like apparently bees communicating with each other and dancing, and that dancing translates into actual math. I didn't know that, right? Like didn't know until like maybe a couple of years during the pandemic. I'm watching a documentary because we're all binge watching TV. They had this thing about bees having an entire language based on math, where their little dances represent certain types of mathematical equations that tell them how to fly and where to fly and all the other stuff. They have this democracy thing going on where they debate with math, right? So yeah, math is a language too. The structure of academic writing looks this way. All of your teachers have told you to make arguments. You have a major claim, which is a thesis, minor claim 1, warrant for minor claim 1, impact minor claim 1, back to the thesis, minor claim 2, warrant for minor claim 2, impact of minor claim 2, back to the thesis, minor claim 3, warrant for minor claim 3, impact of minor claim, back to the thesis. We'll go into that more later, right? But you should write this, you should have this, and you should just remember what your other teachers have already told you about writing a paper, and then just understand that they just asked you to make an argument. Did this help you just now? In what way?
I really suck at writing essays and stuff, so I feel like now that I have this, I can connect debate to it, because I'm gonna debate. So if I can connect debate to writing stuff like that, I feel like I can do better. So.
Okay, cool. And also, here's the thing. You should have always been applying debate to your essays. Because I know that in some categories they go like, here's a persuasive essay, here's a different essay. I think all essays are the same, right? I think all of them are, because all of them are making arguments. It's just the question that's different. So you have to be able to answer the question, but ultimately you're making an argument, a thesis level argument, right? Because a thesis statement is what argument are you making? It literally is saying that. Thesis, the definition of thesis is literally argument. Musoma, did this help you at all? Have you used this in your classes? Amani, helpful to you? In what way? Like, did this in any way, like, shape the way that you're writing or doing papers or anything like this?
I would be writing a piece for essays, but it's
Now, did you know you were writing arguments before in that same way?
for essays?
Yeah. Okay, cool. So, because that's the strength of this thing. Because the strength of this is, in everything that you do, they're only asking you to write an argument. And this is going to be true whether it's a 5-page paper, a 10-page paper, right? A master's thesis. You're going to take this for the rest of your life. Every paper that you write that is an academic paper is going to follow this structure. This is 90% of the reason. I think this is probably like at least 50% of the reason why Newark Public Schools wants debate to be taught, because this is like, this helps everything.
think that's more about emotions rather than any statistical evidence, or what if you're debating a topic that you really believe in and that you're really passionate about, but there aren't any studies on it, or it's not like, it's not something that's been overlooked by scientists or people who do statistics a lot.
Okay, so
Because
that would finish what you're saying.
So, cause like, I like to argue about racial bias a lot and stuff, so for me, I know it's hard for me to find statistics like that are reliable on racial bias, because it's not that.
Hold on a second. You were saying you don't have, but finish your question, and I'm gonna bring someone over that will specifically speak to that, but finish what you're saying.
And I realize like, there's not, like, yes, there are studies on racial bias, but I feel like there's not as nuanced as they could be, because sometimes my arguments are very, like, extremely specific to a certain niche.
Like what niche specifically?
I don't understand it, for example, like, for example, Afrocentralism, I can't find a lot of,
Okay, so, well, two things. First, this afternoon, you're gonna repeat your question when I have Chris Randall, right? Because what you're talking about actually is a research question, right? Because most things about race have been studied over and over again. Like, there probably aren't a lot of nuances that you have that haven't been studied by someone, right? There have been a lot of scholars, especially in the last 20 years, that were really doing this. Chris Randall is amazing at finding and understanding this research. So I say, so I'm first thinking that what you're asking is a research question. The second part of that is, in the areas where there isn't much research, and I wouldn't say race is one of them. I say there's a lot of research on probably almost anything you want, right? People ignore the research, right? There's been research about racial bias, implicit bias. It goes one way, right? Like the research is there over and over again. People just ignore it, right? So, but the second thing that you're talking about is how do you argue things where there are gray areas, right? Is that kind of the question? Like, there's not, it's not factually one way, it's not factually the other way. How do you argue? Right. You would, two things. First, when we get into how to, and write this down, framing. Framing of data. So those are two things that we're gonna get into later that are gonna very specifically answer your question. The first one is how to frame a debate. And the second one is research with Chris Randall. We're gonna get more into framing a debate tomorrow. That is, Sinead jumped into that earlier as well. But framing a debate is the first part of how to have a case for something. There's a logic to it. It's going to directly answer your question, right? Like, when there are gray areas, which there are in every debate, the thing that you have to do is frame the debate, right? Because you're still gonna have evidence. You're gonna have reasons, right? It might not be a statistic, but it's gonna be a reason. It's gonna be a logical reason why the claim is true. And you're gonna have an impact on it. You're gonna explain why it matters. The key, right, is in the impact. Why does it matter? So circle that framing argument, make sure that when we get to framing, that your question is specifically answered, all right? Yeah, you don't have to ask permission to go to the bathroom. You can just go. The restrooms are straight down the hallway, through the doors, and right next to the cafeteria. All right. We're gonna skip this for time, but pedagogy is the philosophy of teaching. If we had teachers here, I would have gone into this, because all of your classes, ultimately, in every class you have, they're supposed to teach you how to make arguments in their discipline. The highest form of pedagogy that's supposed to teach evaluation and creation, right? They're supposed to be, all of your teachers, you can see if they're good or not by whether or not they're teaching you to make arguments about math, arguments about history, arguments about English, right? Ultimately, that's what we're all supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be teaching you how to make arguments about these particular things. Now we're gonna get into what we're gonna do right after, we're gonna get into this after lunch, right? We're probably gonna do a little bit in a few minutes, so I know lunch is supposed to be coming soon. But the moral dilemmas are the debates that you're gonna have. So we're gonna do the trolley car dilemma. It is a famous philosophical dilemma about trolley cars, right? I usually modify it a little bit. I will give you my take on the trolley car dilemma. You are going to have a one argument debate about this afterwards, where we focus on flowing and arguing and direct clash, right? So we're gonna go to the moral dilemma probably right after lunch. I'll start with the moral dilemma. You're gonna have a one argument to justify your actions. We're gonna go into flowing right before that.
Hi, my name is Callie Chappelle, and thanks for watching this video about.
I'm gonna post all this stuff and give you the place to go get this. All of this you're gonna be able to see, and you're going to engage in an actual debate right after lunch. Right? It's gonna be a one argument debate that you're gonna debate in. It is a argument that is a debate that will be about direct clash, which is the most important debate move. A debate move is something that you do in every debate. Debate is about clash. You're arguing against what the other person says, and that's directly tied to argument. Because what parts of an argument do you attack?